I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today's a pretty big day because we get to have our first drive of this, the brand new 12th generation Toyota Corolla. It goes without saying that any new Corolla is a pretty big deal, not only for the Australian car market, but for the world car market, because over its 4 or 5 decades on sale, the Corolla has sold over 40 million units worldwide. Well, Toyota have really been ascendant over the last few years as they basically decided to stop being boring and start designing more interesting, more engaging and better cars to drive. And we've seen the proof in the pudding with new models like the CHR and the most recent revision to the Toyota Camry, both of which are pretty good vehicles to sit in and to drive. So we're expecting big things from this new Corolla. And it gets off to a pretty good start with a really engaging design, and in fact I think this might be the best looking of the small car crop currently. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Is the new Corolla hot or not? Things get better inside as well with a radically improved interior over the outgoing car. We'll have a look at that in a second. And it's even pretty good to drive, so we've been punting it around the roads up here on the Queensland Sunshine Coast for the last couple of days. But first, any small car has to have a practical and comfortable interior, so that's where we're going to start. Well, this is certainly a step up, isn't it? If you remember back to what the old Corolla looks like, and if you don't, here's an overlay of an extremely baby-faced me reviewing the previous generation of this car when it came out. You'll know that the new generation really is something quite special. Toyota have taken the attitudes that they took with the CHR and the new Camry, and basically this interior has been given a big visual lift, and the materials used in it have taken a big step up as well. And that's where I'll start. What you get along this whole dashboard and fascia here are these really soft yielding plastics. They're leather-like, this really cool red stitching on the ZR. And just in this ZR model, that also extends to the door surfaces. They're soft as well. Sadly, the Ascent Sport and SX, the lower two grades, they don't get soft door trims, which I do find a little unusual. And also the SX and ZR get this nice leather steering wheel. The Ascent Sport misses out. It's only plastic in that car, which I'm not too sure about that. However, looking further afield, we get this very nice 8-inch touchscreen across the entire range of the new 2019 Corolla. That looks great. It's relatively easy to use. The mapping graphics are cool. The only problem is that Australia doesn't get Apple CarPlay yet, and Toyota haven't been able to say when we will get it. That contrasts to the American version of this new Corolla, which has Apple CarPlay as standard for all deliveries of the new generation. The ZR does get an additional 7-inch digital driver display here, though it mainly corresponds to just the tachometer and speed functions. You can't really display full maps or that sort of thing within it. You can see your current song, however. One feature you do get in the top 2 grades of this car is wireless phone charging, which is very good to see. And in the ZR, you get these very cool, heavily bolstered sports seats. It's a mix of leather and Alcantara, and they're available in either black or this black with red accents, which I think looks great. Practicality wise, there's 2 decent sized cup holders between the seats, a relatively deep central bin, and small door bins, although they do fit a water bottle each. Here in the back of the Corolla, as you can see, there is room to seat 2 adults side by side. However, I'd be a bit wary about putting somebody tall in the middle just because it's a bit of a perch and a little bit narrow. However, the floor is close enough to being flat, which is better than some. Now, for me at 6 foot, I've got no problem at all with my headroom, but my legs are pressed up against the seat in my driving position, although my toes do have a bit of freedom to move. Keep in mind, this is the sporty ZR, which has these really bulky bucket seats in front. It's not so bad in the other 2 models. And if you've got smaller children, they won't have a problem with room back here at all. Now, you do get a couple of amenities. There are air vents, but only on the top spec ZR, and I'm not sure why the cheaper variants of the Corolla deserve to miss out on air in the back seat, especially when every Volkswagen Golf has air vents in the back. You get a flip down center armrest though, with 2 big cup holders, so that's nice. However, like most small cars these days, they revert to soft touch. They revert to harder plastics here in the back. Moving around the back of this new Corolla, and the first thing you notice is just how good it looks, especially with this very steeply raked hatchback here, which is quite different to the outgoing car. But while it looks good, it has a bit of an impact on the boot space available behind it. Open up the tailgate, and you'll find that in this ZR hybrid model, there's 333 litres of space, which is relatively class competitive, but that's because this is the sole variant in the Australian lineup that doesn't have a spare wheel of any kind. It has a tyre repair kit. Every other model in the 2019 Corolla range has either a full-size spare or a space saver, but no matter which type they've got, the boot only has 217 litres of space. And when you consider that a Volkswagen Golf has 380, you really need to consider whether the new Corolla is going to be practical enough in the boot for what you plan to put in there. So what's the new Toyota Corolla like to drive? Well, just like the new Camry that came before it, it is a dramatic improvement. While there are one or two things to be a little unsure of in the cabin, there's very few things to complain about when it comes to the driving experience in this new car. Sure, the outgoing model didn't really set the dynamic benchmark very high for this segment, but the 12th generation Corolla actually propels this car certainly up into the top third of vehicles it competes with in terms of dynamics, possibly even better than that. When it comes to things like this car's compliance, ride quality and damping, I don't think there's a better car out there other than perhaps the Volkswagen Golf. It's really that plush and that compliant, at least on the 16-inch wheels you get on 2/3 of the range. On the 18-inch wheels of this ZR, things are a little bit more firm, but not unbearably so. So what do you get under the bonnet? Well, there's a choice of two engines with the new Corolla. There's a new 2-litre Dynamic Force series naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol, producing 125 kilowatts of power and 200 newton meters of torque. And that's not turbocharged. Those figures kind of sound turbocharged, but they're not. So all that torque is made at the upper end of the rev range. And what that means is that the Corolla does have strong performance on offer, but you kind of have to rev the engine to get it. So it's a little bit noisier and certainly less refined than an engine that you'd find in the Golf or the turbocharged engines in the Hyundai i30, for example. But I do think it's better than options like the Kia Cerato. Then there's the choice of the hybrid, and that's what Toyota are really going to push for the new Corolla. So it's a 1.8 litre nickel hydride system. We don't get the superior 2 litre lithium ion hybrid that you can get in Europe, unfortunately. Total system output is 90 kilowatts of power, which sounds low, but then there's lots of torque. There's 150 newton meters-ish from the electric motor alone conjoining to the torque from the petrol engine. And what that means is that there is this feeling of low-down torque and dartiness to the hybrid, as if it's had a small turbocharger bolted onto it. And that's a really good thing, because it makes the new Corolla feel quite lively in town, which is where most people are going to be driving it. But if sheer brute force is what you're after, the 2-litre petrol is at the end of the day the stronger engine. But where this car really shines is in the handling department. It's really planted, it feels really low and wide, and it is because the center of gravity is down, the overall clearance of the car is down, the width is up, and you can really feel that. But not only does it feel planted on the road surface, the new Corolla also uses both its front and rear end to real success. The entire range has independent rear suspension, and you can really feel that back end moving when you start to corner this thing in anger. And it really resembles a Golf to me. I mean, I could never have imagined 5 years ago that we would be saying a Toyota Corolla has aspects of Golf to the driving experience, but it really does. If there are a couple of areas to improve the experience, however, the first is that the Corolla is a little bit noisy over coarse chip roads. On smooth roads, there's no issue with noise at all because you get very, very little wind noise or environmental noise in this car. It's all tyre raw. So a bit more insulation would have been good. And it's a shame that Toyota Australia aren't offering the turbocharged 4-cylinder engines that you can get in Europe, where this car is badged as the Toyota Auris, as I think they would suit our driving styles here in Australia better with their greater serve of low-down torque. The tyres on the lower two models leave a little bit to be desired, and when you come to the limits of grip, that's when you have to start being a little bit more gentle with the Corolla. But this is a really fun handler. It has nice steering, really neutral balance, it goes where you want, it's faithful, I think this is a really good car to drive. Plus, it's a safe car to drive because you get Toyota's safety sense effectively standard across the range, AEB, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, that's all standard. However, you have to move up to the mid-spec car to get blind spot monitoring. So those are my first impressions of the new Toyota Corolla. It's so great to see a car company that for decades was mired with a boring reputation throw off those shackles and start making great looking cars that are fun to drive and are seriously class competitive. Is the new Corolla perfect? No, it would be better with the European turbo and stronger hybrid engine options. The boot is too small and the base model is a bit stingy. But otherwise, this is a very, very good small car, showcasing impressive dynamics, good fuel economy, a comfortable cabin, and lush styling. For the first time ever, the Corolla is worth a serious look if you're thinking of buying something more premium like a Volkswagen Golf or Ford Focus. That alone speaks volumes.